Welcome to this presentation on Developmental Psychology Foundations. We will look at the definition of developmental psychology, the domains, characteristics, and issues related to how and why people change throughout their lifetime. The process of change that takes place throughout a person's lifespan is complex and exciting. Some changes are instantaneous, like the change that takes place at the moment of conception when two independent cells join to form a brand new human being. Some changes are a bit slower, like the 9 months of growth and development that take place in the womb. Each succeeding stage brings more changes, some outwardly obvious, while others are hidden from view. And that leads us to our definition. Developmental psychology is a scientific study of how people change over time. Two key words to remember here: scientific and change. Scientific because our study is systematic and empirically based. Change because that is what we do throughout the lifespan. In fact, lifespan is a great word to remember, as that describes the approach we will take. We will begin by looking at prenatal development and follow the journey of life all the way through to death. Here are the stages we will study: prenatal, infancy, childhood, adolescence, emerging adulthood, adulthood, older adulthood, and death. We will examine each stage as we look at 4 separate domains or areas in which change takes place. The biological domain covers physical changes within the body like height, weight, motor skills, and brain growth. The cognitive domain looks at things like thinking, memory, intelligence, and language development. The social and emotional domain examines the way we change in temperament, personality, relationships, and emotions. Finally, the spiritual domain explores how belief, religion, transcendence, and a person's connection to God impacts their development. In our study of the lifespan, we see that development is lifelong, multidirectional, multicontextual, multidisciplinary, multicultural, and plastic. First, let's look at the characteristic that is easiest to explain. Human development is lifelong. At one time, psychologists believed that most of development occurred during infancy, childhood, and adolescence. We now know that development continues throughout the entire lifespan. We change physically, cognitively, emotionally, socially, and spiritually until the day we die. That is why we say development is lifelong. Next, we see that development is multidirectional. In looking at the life of humans, we see that change can be fast or slow. It can be continuous or sporadic. Some change occurs in stages, like walking up a set of stairs. At other times, development unfolds on its own schedule, starting, stopping, moving forward, falling back, and sometimes even going around in circles. Because of this, we understand that development is multidirectional. We also see that change or development is multicontextual. It depends on the context in which it takes place. Imagine how a child's development might be different if they're raised here instead of here. What if they worship here instead of here? If they were born and raised in this era instead of this one? The context of your life will impact your growth and development. Development is also multidisciplinary. Here are some examples. Biologists look at how genetics impact development. Psychologists consider how things like depression or stress might affect development. An expert in religion might explore how belief influences a person throughout their lifespan. Sociologists and anthropologists try to explain how relationships and culture influence growth. Educators investigate how things like learning, memory, and achievement impact development. So we see that human development is multidisciplinary. Development is also multicultural. A child born in Tanzania will learn and grow differently than a child in Turkey, who will learn differently from a child raised in Thailand, Tokyo, or Topeka. So we see that development is multicultural. The final characteristic on our list is the word plastic. Development is plastic. Wait a minute, not that kind of plastic. In human development, when we talk about plasticity, we mean that change is almost always possible. Just as plastic can be transformed or shaped into almost any form, humans also exhibit this trait in their development. Our final topic for this presentation are the topics of debate or unresolved issues related to human development. These issues are stability versus change, continuity versus discontinuity, and nature versus nurture. Let's talk first about stability versus change. As we consider stability versus change, we ask the question of whether or not a person can change significantly over their lifespan. For example, do deficits suffered in infancy or early childhood doom a person for the rest of their life? What about temperament? Is a person stuck with a particular temperament, or can they change? Since this is an ongoing debate, there is no right or wrong answer. There is both stability and change in human development. A second issue we consider in developmental psychology is whether development is continuous or discontinuous. Discontinuous development is like an orderly progression of distinct stages, like walking up a set of stairs. Continuous development is less regimented. There are no clear separations between stages. It is more like walking up a gradual slope. As is the case with stability versus change, we see that development is both continuous and discontinuous. Finally, let's talk about what is probably the most discussed issue in developmental psychology, the nature versus nurture debate. What is more influential in one's development? Our genetic heritage or the care that we receive from our families? Is it nature or nurture? Some studies would seem to indicate that nurture is more influential. Other research, for instance twin studies, quote-unquote, prove that nature is more influential. So which one is correct? The answer seems to be both. With each of these three debates, we conclude that both sides have merit. Development includes both stability and change. It is both continuous and discontinuous. Both nature and nurture are influential. And here's a summary of all that we discussed in this presentation today. The definition, domains, stages, characteristics, and issues that form a foundation for our study of developmental psychology. And that concludes our brief overview of foundational concepts for this course. Detailed information about each of these topics will be covered in our other course materials. Thank you for watching, and God bless.